After 31 hours of labor, 42-year-old Evelyn Carter finally heard her newborn daughter's cry. One cry was strong and angry. The other was softer, almost like a question. Evelyn closed her eyes as tears slipped down the sides of her face. For 7 years, she had prayed for this moment. She had endured failed treatments, painful procedures, and more negative pregnancy tests than she could count. Now her daughters were alive. She thought the worst moment of her life was finally over. Then her husband walked into the recovery room carrying divorce papers. Grant Mercer did not ask whether Evelyn was all right. He did not look toward the medical team caring for the twins. He did not reach for his wife's trembling hand. He placed the documents across her blanket and set a black pen beside them. "Sign," he said. Evelyn stared at him, still weak from blood loss. "Grant, what are you doing?" His face remained cold. "Ending this before you find another way to humiliate me." He glanced toward the bassinets where the nurses were examining the babies. "Those children are not mine." A nurse stopped moving. The doctor beside Evelyn slowly raised his head, but Grant continued, "I have medical proof that I cannot father children, so whoever their father is, he can take responsibility for them." Evelyn tried to sit up, but pain tore through her abdomen. "Please," she whispered, "not here. Not now." Grant pushed the pen closer. "You should have thought about that before you betrayed me." Before he could turn toward the door, a nurse hurried into the room carrying an emergency blood bank report. She looked at the paper, then at Grant. "Sir," she said, "you need to stay." Grant frowned. "Why?" The nurse's expression changed. "Because one of the twins needs an urgent transfusion, and the preliminary blood results have revealed something your fertility report says should be impossible." What the hospital uncovered that night would expose a forged medical record, a multi-million-dollar inheritance, and a betrayal that had begun long before Evelyn became pregnant. But the most painful truth was not who created the lie. It was what Grant chose to do before he ever checked whether that lie was true. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Evelyn Carter had spent most of her adult life caring for other people's babies. As a neonatal nurse at St. Anne's Medical Center outside Boston, she knew how to remain calm when a monitor began screaming. She knew how to comfort terrified parents without making promises no doctor could guarantee. She knew how to place one finger into the palm of a premature infant and wait for that impossibly small hand to hold on. What Evelyn did not know was how to stop holding on to people who had already let go of her. She had met Grant Mercer 11 years earlier at a charity fundraiser organized by the hospital. Grant was everything Evelyn thought she was not. He was polished, confident, and born into the kind of family whose name appeared on university buildings. His grandfather had founded Mercer Industrial Group, a manufacturing company that employed nearly 4,000 people across New England. Grant spoke as though every room had been designed for him to enter. Evelyn had attended the fundraiser directly after a 12-hour shift. Her dark hair was pinned into a hurried knot, and she had changed from her scrubs into a simple blue dress in the hospital restroom. She had been standing alone beside a table of untouched desserts when Grant approached her. "You look like you would rather be anywhere else," he said. Evelyn smiled. "I was thinking everyone here seems to know exactly what to say." "And you don't?" "I usually speak to people who weigh less than 8 pounds. Grant laughed. It was the first of many things about Evelyn that seemed to surprise him. He liked that she did not know who his father was. He liked that she asked about his work without pretending to understand financial projections. He liked that she could spend an hour discussing one premature baby who had finally gained 3 ounces. For the first few years, he made her feel as though her kindness was not something to apologize for. They married in a small ceremony overlooking the Charles River. Evelyn's mother had already passed away, so her Aunt Ruth stood beside her. Ruth had raised Evelyn through the final years of high school and had taught her that love was not supposed to make a woman disappear. At the reception, Grant held Evelyn close and promised they would build a family filled with laughter. At the time, she believed him. Their first year of marriage was warm and uncomplicated. They lived in a modest apartment while Grant worked his way through the family company. They ate takeout on the floor before their furniture arrived. They argued about whose turn it was to wash the dishes and made up before going to bed. Then Grant's father died. Everything changed after the funeral. Grant became chief financial officer of Mercer Industrial, while his older sister, Celeste, became chairwoman of the board and trustee of the family estate. Celeste Mercer was 7 years older than Grant and had spent her entire life preparing to control the company. She was elegant, disciplined, and frighteningly patient. She never raised her voice because she did not need to. People adjusted themselves around Celeste before she ever asked them to. From the beginning, she treated Evelyn as though Grant had married beneath the family. At Christmas dinners, Celeste praised Evelyn's dedication to nursing, then asked whether she planned to find a profession with more suitable hours. At company events, she introduced Evelyn as Grant's wife from the hospital, as though Evelyn's name were too insignificant to remember. Grant noticed, but he rarely defended her. "That's just Celeste," he would say. "You take things too personally." Evelyn tried not to complain. She told herself that marriage required patience. Then she and Grant began trying to have a child. 1 year passed, then 2. Every month began with hope and ended with Evelyn sitting on the bathroom floor, holding another negative test. The specialist found no clear reason she could not become pregnant. Grant, however, resisted being tested. He said the problem was probably stress. He suggested Evelyn reduce her hospital hours. He bought her expensive vitamins and spoke as though pregnancy were another goal that could be reached through sufficient planning. Finally, after a tense argument, he agreed to provide a sample at a private fertility clinic used by the Mercer family. 3 days later, he received the report. According to the results, Grant had a condition called non-obstructive azoospermia. The report claimed there were no measurable sperm cells in his sample and that biological fatherhood was virtually impossible. Grant did not show Evelyn the report immediately. For almost 2 weeks, he carried it alone. When he finally placed it on their kitchen counter, his face looked empty. "I can't give you children," he said. Evelyn reached for him. "We don't know that. One test isn't the end. We can get another opinion." Grant pulled away. "You heard what I said. I heard what the report says. That is not the same thing." He refused further testing. Evelyn suggested adoption. Grant said he needed time. She suggested donor conception. Grant accused her of treating him like a defective piece of equipment. After that night, something hardened inside him. He worked later. He stopped discussing children. He moved from their bedroom into the guest room, claiming he could not sleep beside someone who looked at him with pity. Evelyn never pitied him, but Grant had already decided that she did. What Evelyn did not know was that Celeste had seen the fertility report before Grant had. She had selected the clinic. She had recommended the specialist, and she had been present when the Mercer family attorney explained the final condition of their father's trust. Under the trust, Grant and Celeste each controlled 30% of Mercer Industrial's voting shares. The remaining 40% was held temporarily by Celeste as trustee. But the arrangement would change when the first biological grandchild was born. At that moment, 20% of the voting shares would transfer into a protected trust for the child, or be divided equally if more than one child was born at the same time. Until those children reached adulthood, their custodial parent would hold significant influence over the trust. If Evelyn gave birth to Grant's children, Celeste would lose her controlling majority, and Evelyn, the neonatal nurse Celeste had never respected, would become one of the most influential people connected to the company. 8 months after Grant received his diagnosis, Evelyn became pregnant. She discovered it alone before dawn. At first, she assumed the test was wrong. Then she took a second one, then a third, all positive. Her doctor ordered blood work and an ultrasound. Evelyn lay on the examination table, barely breathing, as the technician moved the probe and studied the monitor. After several seconds, the technician smiled. "There are two." Evelyn turned her head. "Two what?" "Two heartbeats." She laughed and cried at the same time. Twins. Two tiny lives after years of silence. Evelyn took the ultrasound photograph home, inside an envelope, and waited for Grant to return from work. She had imagined a dozen possible reactions: shock, tears, disbelief followed by joy. She did not imagine accusation. Grant stared at the ultrasound image for almost a full minute. Then he looked at her. "Who is he?" Evelyn's smile disappeared. "What?" "The father." She thought he was speaking from fear. "Grant, they are yours. That is medically impossible. You had one test. The doctor said we should repeat it. I know what the report said, and I know I have never been with anyone else." Grant stepped away from her. "Do not insult me by lying to my face." He left the house that night and stayed at Celeste's home. When he returned 3 days later, he was colder. Celeste had spent those 3 days reinforcing every fear he carried. She told him Evelyn had probably become pregnant through someone at the hospital. She said women who desperately wanted children could convince themselves that betrayal was justified. She reminded him that if he accepted the babies as his, Evelyn could gain influence over the family trust. Grant listened because Celeste offered him something easier than uncertainty. She offered him someone to blame. Evelyn begged him to take a DNA test when the babies were born. Grant refused. "I don't need a test to confirm what I already know." From then on, they lived like strangers. Evelyn remained in their home because her pregnancy quickly became high risk. The twins shared a placenta, and one was considerably smaller than the other. Grant paid the household bills, but he rarely spoke to her. He attended no appointments. He did not help build the cribs. He did not ask about possible names. When Evelyn was 29 weeks pregnant, she found a legal envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was a preliminary separation agreement. She called Grant immediately. "You are divorcing me while I'm carrying twins?" "I'm protecting myself." "They are your daughters. You keep saying that, as if repetition can make it true." Evelyn placed one hand over her stomach. One of the babies kicked. "Come to one appointment," she said. "Listen to their hearts. Look at them. Then tell me you feel nothing." Grant was silent. For one painful second, Evelyn believed he might agree. Then he said, "My attorney will contact you," and ended the call. The twins were not due for another 7 weeks when Evelyn woke one night to severe pain. A winter storm had covered the roads outside Boston. Ice struck the windows, and the wind shook the bare branches behind the house. Evelyn called Grant. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. She called Celeste, who answered on the 5th ring. "What is it?" "I think I'm in labor. I can't reach Grant." There was a pause. "He is at a board dinner. I need someone to drive me. Call an ambulance." Then Celeste disconnected. Evelyn called emergency services herself. By the time she arrived at St. Anne's, her blood pressure was dangerously high. One twin's heart rate had begun to fall, while the other showed signs of distress. Her friend and former supervisor, Linda Morales, met her in the maternity ward. Linda was 58, practical, and impossible to frighten. She took one look at Evelyn and understood that something was wrong beyond the labor. "Where is Grant?" Evelyn turned her face away. "He's coming." But he was not. Doctors tried to slow the contractions. When that failed, they prepared Evelyn for an emergency cesarean delivery. She called Grant one final time. This time he answered. "Evelyn, I am in a meeting. They are taking me into surgery." Silence. Then Grant sighed. "I'll come when I can." The first baby was delivered at 2:14 in the morning. Evelyn named her Lily. The second arrived 2 minutes later. She named her Rose. Lily cried immediately. Rose did not. A team carried Rose to the warming table and began working over her. Evelyn could not see what they were doing. She heard instructions, the opening of packages, and the quick movement of shoes. "Why isn't she crying?" Evelyn asked. No one answered immediately. Then a faint sound emerged from the other side of the room. Rose had taken her first breath. Evelyn wept. Both girls were premature, but alive. 30 minutes later, while Evelyn was still being treated for significant bleeding, Grant entered the recovery room. He was dressed in the same dark suit he had worn to dinner. Celeste followed him. Linda stepped between them and Evelyn's bed. "She has just undergone emergency surgery." Grant held up the divorce documents. "This will only take a minute." Linda stared at him. "You cannot be serious." Evelyn watched Celeste place a hand on Grant's arm. "Do what you came to do," Celeste said quietly. Grant approached the bed. He told Evelyn the twins were not his. He asked her to sign, and when she begged him to wait, he accused her of betraying him in front of the nurses who had just saved her life. That was when the blood bank nurse entered. Rose's oxygen levels had dropped, and laboratory testing showed that she might need an urgent transfusion. Because Grant was still Evelyn's legal husband, the hospital asked whether he would provide a blood sample while compatible units were located. He almost refused. Celeste encouraged him to leave, but Linda blocked the doorway. "You came here to prove those babies are not yours," she said. "Then provide the sample." Grant looked at Evelyn. Something in his expression said he wanted the final satisfaction of proving her guilty. "Fine." He allowed the technician to draw his blood. 25 minutes later, the nurse returned with the preliminary findings. Grant shared an uncommon combination of blood antigens with both infants, including a rare variation that Evelyn did not carry. The result did not prove paternity, but it meant Grant could not be excluded as their father. More importantly, it raised questions about the medical report claiming he had no possibility of fathering a child. The attending physician explained this carefully. "Mr. Mercer, blood typing cannot establish paternity. Only DNA testing can do that. But there is enough here to justify immediate confirmation." Grant looked toward Celeste. For the first time that night, Celeste appeared uncertain. "It means nothing," she said. The doctor turned to her. "It means the children may be his." "They are not." The certainty in Celeste's voice caused Linda to study her more closely. Grant refused an immediate DNA swab. "This is ridiculous," he said. "The fertility clinic already confirmed my condition." The doctor remained calm. "Then a DNA test will support your position." Grant looked at the divorce papers lying across Evelyn's blanket. He looked at the two bassinets. Then he walked out. Celeste followed him. Evelyn did not call after either of them. Hours later, she woke in a private recovery room. Linda sat beside her. The twins had been transferred to the neonatal intensive care unit. Rose had stabilized after treatment. Lily remained stronger, though both girls would need several weeks of monitoring. Evelyn listened, gripping Linda's hand. Then she asked the question she had been afraid to say aloud. "Did Grant come back?" Linda shook her head. "No." Evelyn closed her eyes. "I kept believing there was a line he would never cross." Linda leaned closer. "Some people keep moving the line because they believe you will keep following them." Evelyn stared toward the dark window. "I'm done following." The next morning, she authorized an independent DNA test. Because Grant would not cooperate voluntarily, Evelyn's attorney sought an emergency court order requiring a sample. Grant fought the request for 2 days. His resistance made no sense if he was as certain as he claimed. That was the first thing Evelyn's new attorney noticed. Her name was Miriam Shaw, a 61-year-old family lawyer recommended by Linda. Miriam did not speak dramatically. She did not promise revenge. She reviewed every document, asked precise questions, and wrote notes in a narrow black book. When Evelyn finished describing the delivery room confrontation, Miriam closed the book. "He wanted you to sign while you were medicated?" "Yes." "Did anyone witness it?" "At least 6 people." Good. Evelyn looked startled. Miriam's expression softened. I don't mean that what happened was good. I mean he made the mistake of showing everyone exactly who he was. The court ordered Grant to provide a DNA sample. The results arrived 48 hours later. Probability of paternity, 99.9998%. Grant Mercer was the biological father of both Lily and Rose. Miriam brought the report to Evelyn's hospital room. Evelyn read it twice. She felt no triumph, only exhaustion. For months, Grant had accused her. He had ignored the baby's existence. He had left her to face a dangerous pregnancy alone. He had placed divorce papers on her body before the doctors had finished controlling her bleeding. And none of it had been true. Linda stood beside the window. "What are you feeling?" she asked. Evelyn looked down at the result. "I thought this would give me relief. It may take time. He could have taken this test months ago." "Yes. He chose not to." Linda nodded. That was the truth Evelyn could not escape. Grant had been given doubt, but he had chosen cruelty. The DNA report changed everything. Grant's attorney contacted Miriam that same afternoon. Suddenly, Grant wanted to visit the twins. He wanted to discuss reconciliation. He claimed he had been misled by medical professionals and emotionally overwhelmed. Miriam delivered his request without commentary. Evelyn stared at her. He wants to reconcile? That is what his attorney says. He has not called me. No. He has not apologized. No. He sent his lawyer. Yes. Evelyn looked toward the NICU window, where Lily and Rose slept beneath soft lights. Tell him he can communicate through the court. Miriam gave one approving nod. Grant arrived at the hospital later that evening anyway. Security stopped him outside the NICU because Evelyn had removed him from the approved visitor list. He demanded to see his daughters. Linda met him in the hallway. "You denied they were yours," she said. "I was given false medical information. And Evelyn gave you the truth." Grant's jaw tightened. "You don't know what happened in my marriage. I know what happened in her delivery room." He lowered his voice. "I made a mistake." Linda looked at him for a long moment. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You tried to make a woman sign divorce papers while she was hemorrhaging." Grant looked away. That was when Celeste entered the hallway. She was not there to support her brother. She had come to contain the damage. "Grant," she said, "our lawyers are waiting." Linda watched Celeste closely. The chairwoman's calm appearance had returned, but her left hand was clenched around her phone. As Celeste turned, the screen lit briefly. Linda saw the name of the fertility clinic. She remembered Celeste's certainty in the delivery room. "The babies are not his." Not, "I don't believe they are." Not, "The report says they are not." She had spoken as though she possessed knowledge no one else had. Linda mentioned this to Evelyn. Evelyn told Miriam, and Miriam requested a forensic review of Grant's fertility records. At first, the clinic refused. Then the hospital's compliance department noticed something unusual. The printed report Grant had shown Evelyn contained a laboratory identification number that did not match the clinic's normal formatting. The result date also fell on a Sunday, when the laboratory was closed. Miriam obtained a subpoena. The clinic produced its digital records. Grant's original result was not what he had received. His actual test showed reduced sperm count, but not infertility. The physician had recommended a repeat sample because stress, illness, and collection problems could temporarily affect the numbers. Someone had replaced that report with a false diagnosis. The altered document had been uploaded using the credentials of a medical records technician named Paula Vance. Paula had resigned from the clinic 6 months earlier. When investigators contacted her, she initially denied involvement. Then they traced a payment of $75,000 into an account belonging to her brother. The transfer came from a consulting company controlled by Celeste Mercer. Miriam brought the evidence to Evelyn on the day she was finally able to hold both daughters together. Lily rested against her left shoulder. Rose slept against her right. Evelyn listened without moving. Celeste forged the report? She paid someone to alter it. Why? Miriam placed a copy of the Mercer Trust on the table. When your daughters were born, they became beneficiaries of 20% of the voting shares in Mercer Industrial. Evelyn looked down at the sleeping babies. They are premature infants. Legally, they are also heirs. And Celeste loses control. Exactly. The room became very quiet. Evelyn remembered every insult disguised as advice. Every time Celeste had treated her desire for children as an inconvenience. Every conversation in which she had encouraged Grant not to seek a second medical opinion. The cruelty had not been random. It had been strategy. But Miriam had more. The clinic left Grant a voicemail 2 weeks before your delivery. Evelyn looked up. What voicemail? They discovered a discrepancy during an internal file review. They asked him to schedule a repeat test immediately. Did he receive it? His phone records show that he listened to the entire message. Evelyn felt something inside her grow still. He knew the report might be wrong. He knew there was a reason to question it. Before he came to the hospital? Yes. The answer hurt more than the forged document. Celeste had created the lie, but Grant had been given a chance to question it. He listened to the voicemail and said nothing. He still walked into the recovery room. He still brought divorce papers. He still looked at his daughters and called them another man's children. When Grant finally came to see Evelyn, he arrived alone. She agreed to meet him in a hospital conference room. Miriam sat beside her. Linda remained near the door. Grant looked exhausted. His expensive suit could not hide the fact that he had not slept. He placed his hands on the table. Evelyn, I know you hate me. I don't have enough energy to hate you. He flinched. Celeste manipulated both of us. She manipulated you. She forged medical evidence. And I told you the truth. Grant lowered his eyes. I did not know what to believe. You knew enough to listen to the clinic's voicemail. His face changed. Evelyn watched the realization move through him. He had not expected her to know. That message was unclear. It said your records might contain an error. I thought they were protecting themselves. You thought what you wanted to think. Grant leaned forward. I was humiliated. You were afraid. I had a medical report saying I could not have children, and then my wife became pregnant with twins. So you punished me without proof. I was not thinking clearly. You thought clearly enough to bring an attorney into my delivery room. Grant's eyes filled, but Evelyn did not look away. I lost control, he said. No, you made choices. He whispered her name. Evelyn continued. You chose not to repeat the test. You chose not to attend an appointment. You chose to believe your sister because her version allowed you to protect your pride. I am sorry. For what? For all of it. That is not an answer. Grant pressed his lips together. Evelyn looked toward the glass wall separating the room from the hallway. You are sorry because the test proved you wrong. You are sorry because the company trust has changed. You are sorry because people saw what you did. But are you sorry that I was alone? Grant said nothing. Are you sorry that I called you from an ambulance and you told me you were in a meeting? His face tightened. Are you sorry that your daughters entered the world while their father stood over their mother with divorce papers? I said I am sorry. Evelyn shook her head. You keep saying the words because you want them to end the consequences. Grant's voice became sharper. What do you want from me? The truth. I have told you the truth. No. You have told me what you believe might save you. For a moment, his old anger returned. I was deceived too. Yes, Evelyn said, and that matters. But being deceived does not erase what you did with the deception. Grant stood. They are my daughters, biologically. You cannot keep them from me forever. Evelyn felt Linda shift near the door, but she remained calm. I am not deciding this in a hospital conference room. The court will decide what contact is safe. Grant stared at her. You would take my children away because I made one mistake? Evelyn rose carefully. No, Grant. You abandoned them because you were too proud to ask one question. The confrontation ended there, but Grant did not leave quietly. The following morning, His attorneys filed for temporary joint custody. The petition described Grant as a concerned father who had been victimized by fraudulent medical information. It described Evelyn as emotionally distressed, medically fragile, and influenced by hostile hospital employees. The filing made no mention of the divorce papers, no mention of his refusal to attend prenatal appointments, no mention of the voicemail. Most disturbing of all, Grant signed an affidavit stating that he had pursued DNA testing as soon as doubts emerged. That statement was demonstrably false. Miriam read the petition in silence. Then she looked at Evelyn. He is not trying to repair the damage. He is trying to rewrite it. Evelyn felt strangely calm. What do we do? We preserve the truth. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following week. By then, the twins had grown stronger. Lily no longer required oxygen. Rose was gaining weight slowly but steadily. Evelyn visited them every day. She spoke to them about ordinary things: the yellow curtains waiting in their nursery, the small garden behind Aunt Ruth's house, the lullabies Evelyn's mother used to sing. She refused to let Grant and Celeste occupy every moment of her daughter's beginning. Still, the pressure increased. Reporters appeared outside the hospital after news of the Mercer Trust dispute leaked. Mercer Industrial announced an internal review. Celeste released a statement denying any involvement in medical fraud. Grant publicly claimed that his family was going through a private misunderstanding. Then someone attempted to interfere with the court-ordered DNA evidence. The hospital laboratory supervisor discovered that a sealed backup sample belonging to Grant had been removed from secure storage and replaced with an empty container. Security footage showed a courier entering the restricted area using temporary credentials. The courier was stopped before leaving the hospital. In his bag, investigators found the original sample and $50,000 in cash. His phone contained messages from a number registered to one of Celeste's assistants. Celeste had not only forged the fertility report, she had tried to compromise the DNA evidence after the twins were born. That act transformed the case from a private family dispute into a criminal investigation. The board of Mercer Industrial called an emergency meeting. Celeste arrived with 3 attorneys. Grant attended, but refused to sit beside her. For years, the siblings had protected one another because their power depended on the appearance of unity. Now that unity was collapsing, the board's independent counsel presented the trust documents, the payment to the clinic employee, the messages to the courier, and evidence that corporate funds had been routed through Celeste's consulting company. Celeste remained composed until Grant was asked whether he had known about the altered report. He stood. "My sister told me the clinic's findings were conclusive." Celeste turned toward him. "Be careful." Grant ignored her. "She advised me against further testing. She said Evelyn would use any uncertainty to gain control of the company." Celeste's expression sharpened. "You were eager to believe me." The room fell silent. Grant's face reddened. Celeste continued, "You came to me because you could not tolerate the possibility that your wife had a life you did not control. I gave you an explanation, and you embraced it. You forged a medical report." "Yes," Celeste said, "and you used it." Her admission seemed to surprise even her attorneys. Perhaps she understood that the evidence was too strong to deny. Perhaps she wanted Grant to fall with her. The board voted to remove Celeste as chairwoman and trustee pending the criminal investigation. Grant was suspended as chief financial officer after the board learned that he had signed false documents concerning the twins' status as beneficiaries. For the first time in her life, Celeste Mercer left a room without anyone following her. The custody hearing began 2 days later. Evelyn wore a navy dress Aunt Ruth had brought from home. She did not look powerful in the way Celeste did. She looked tired, human, determined. Grant sat with his attorneys on the opposite side of the courtroom. The judge, Margaret Ellis, had spent 23 years hearing families describe their worst moments. She did not appear easily impressed or shocked. Miriam presented the case methodically. She called Linda first. Linda described the delivery room. She repeated Grant's exact words. "Those babies are not mine." She described the divorce papers placed on Evelyn's blanket while doctors were still treating her for hemorrhaging. Grant's attorney attempted to argue that he had been emotionally destabilized by false medical information. Linda looked directly at Grant. "Fear may explain a person's first reaction. It does not explain 31 weeks of abandonment." Next came the attending physician. He testified that Grant refused immediate DNA testing despite being told the preliminary blood results contradicted his assumptions. The fertility clinic director confirmed that Grant had been asked to repeat his test. Phone records proved he listened to the voicemail. Then Miriam played a recording from the hospital hallway. Grant's voice was unmistakable. "I don't need a test to confirm what I already know." The courtroom remained silent after the recording ended. Miriam called Evelyn last. She walked to the witness stand slowly, still recovering from surgery. Miriam approached her. "Mrs. Mercer, are you seeking to prevent Grant from ever knowing his daughters?" "No." Grant looked up. Evelyn continued. "I am seeking to make sure that any relationship he has with them begins safely and truthfully." "What do you believe would be safe?" "Supervised visitation, counseling, and demonstrated consistency over time." "Why not immediate joint custody?" "Because parenthood is not a prize someone receives after a laboratory proves them wrong." Miriam allowed the sentence to settle. "What did you want from Grant when you told him you were pregnant?" "I wanted him to ask questions. I wanted him to come to one appointment. I wanted him to look at me and remember who I had been throughout our marriage." "Did he?" "No." "What do you want now?" Evelyn glanced toward Grant. "I want my daughters to grow up understanding that love is not something they must earn by accepting cruelty." Grant's attorney rose for cross-examination. He suggested Evelyn was influenced by resentment. He asked whether she had refused Grant access to the NICU. "Yes," Evelyn said. "Even after DNA proved he was the father?" "Yes." "So you deliberately prevented a father from seeing his children." "I prevented an angry man who had just attempted to force divorce papers into my hand from entering a restricted medical unit without a court order." The attorney changed direction. "Mrs. Mercer, is it true that my client was also a victim of Celeste Mercer's fraud?" "Yes." "Then why are you unwilling to forgive him?" Miriam objected, but Evelyn spoke before the judge could rule. "Forgiveness and access are not the same thing." The attorney paused. Evelyn continued. "I may forgive him one day because I do not want to carry this forever. But forgiveness does not require me to pretend he is ready to care for two vulnerable babies." The judge allowed the answer to stand. Grant testified next. At first, he sounded remorseful. He described the shock of learning about his supposed infertility. He spoke about Celeste's influence and his fear that Evelyn had deceived him. Then Miriam questioned him. "You listened to the fertility clinic's voicemail before the delivery?" "Yes." "You understood that your records might contain an error?" "They said there was a discrepancy." "Yet you did not schedule another test?" "No." "You did not tell Evelyn?" "No." "You brought divorce papers to the hospital?" "Yes." "You attempted to obtain her signature while she was medicated?" Grant shifted. "I wanted closure. You wanted control." His attorney objected. The judge instructed Miriam to rephrase. Miriam stepped closer. "What prevented you from waiting 24 hours?" Grant did not answer. "What prevented you from looking at your daughters before accusing their mother?" Silence. "What prevented you from requesting the DNA test Evelyn had offered for months?" Grant's face tightened. "I was afraid." Miriam nodded. "That is the first honest answer you have given today." Grant looked toward Evelyn. For one moment, his expression was stripped of anger and pride. He looked like the man she had once loved. But love could not erase evidence. Judge Ellis delivered her ruling that afternoon. Evelyn would receive temporary sole legal and physical custody. Grant would be permitted 1 hour of supervised visitation each week after completing an initial psychological assessment and parenting program. He was prohibited from discussing the litigation, the trust, or accusations of infidelity in the children's presence. The court also ordered him to pay support and all outstanding medical expenses. The ruling was not the dramatic destruction some people expected. It was something more useful: protection. Grant was not erased from his daughter's lives, but neither was he rewarded for appearing after the truth became undeniable. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered behind metal barriers. Evelyn did not make a statement. She returned to the hospital. That evening, Lily and Rose were moved into the same open crib for the first time. Evelyn sat beside them and watched their hands drift toward each other. Linda stood behind her. "You won," Linda said. Evelyn shook her head. "They are still in the hospital. My marriage is over. Their father has to be supervised. I don't feel like I won." Linda placed a hand on her shoulder. "Winning does not always feel like celebration. Sometimes it feels like finally being able to sleep." 2 weeks later, the twins went home. Evelyn did not return to the house she had shared with Grant. She moved temporarily into Aunt Ruth's home in a quiet neighborhood west of Boston. The nursery was small, but sunlight entered through 2 windows every morning. Ruth had painted the walls pale yellow. Linda brought enough frozen meals to feed an entire maternity ward. Miriam arranged the legal documents. For the first time since the pregnancy began, Evelyn was surrounded by people who helped without asking her to become smaller in return. Grant attended his first supervised visit 3 weeks later. He arrived early. He had completed the initial counseling assessment and brought no gifts except 2 handwritten letters that the supervisor would not allow the babies to receive until they were older. Evelyn watched through a one-way observation window. Grant sat between the 2 bassinets. For several minutes, he did not touch either child. Then Lily began to cry. The supervisor showed him how to lift her safely. Grant held his daughter against his chest. His face crumpled. Evelyn turned away. Part of her wanted that moment to mean he had changed, but she had learned the danger of confusing emotion with transformation. A man could cry and remain selfish. A man could feel regret and still avoid responsibility. Change would not be measured by one tearful afternoon. It would be measured by what Grant did after no one was watching. Celeste was indicted on charges connected to medical record tampering, bribery, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Paula, the clinic employee, agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. The Mercer board appointed an independent trustee for Lily and Rose's shares. Evelyn was given a formal role in approving decisions that affected their inheritance, but she refused a seat on the company board. "I don't want power over the company," she told Miriam. "I want protection for my daughters." 6 months passed. Lily grew into a loud, curious baby who objected whenever anyone stopped paying attention to her. Rose remained smaller, but watched everything with wide, thoughtful eyes. Evelyn returned to St. Anne's 3 days a week. On her first morning back, she stood outside the neonatal unit and listened to the familiar sounds of monitors and quiet voices. Linda joined her. "Ready?" Evelyn smiled. "I think so. You don't have to prove anything." "I know. That was the difference." Before, Evelyn had worked until exhaustion, because being needed made her feel worthy. Now she understood that rest did not diminish her value. Her divorce from Grant became final just before the twins' first birthday. Grant did not contest the settlement. By then, he had attended nearly every supervised visit. He had completed parenting classes and continued therapy. The court expanded his visitation gradually, though Evelyn retained sole legal custody. He never asked her to reconcile again. Perhaps counseling had taught him that remorse did not entitle him to restoration. On the day the divorce was finalized, Evelyn met Grant outside the courthouse. He looked older than he had a year earlier. "I owe you an apology that does not ask you for anything," he said. Evelyn waited. "I believed Celeste because her lie protected me from uncertainty. But after the clinic called, I knew there was a possibility I was wrong. I ignored it because admitting doubt meant admitting what I had already done to you." Evelyn said nothing. Grant continued. I was afraid that if the babies were mine, I would have to face the fact that I abandoned my family. So I chose the answer that allowed me to feel injured. The honesty hurt, but it also closed something inside her. Not every wound needed a satisfying explanation. Sometimes the truth was simply that a person had chosen himself at another person's expense. "I hope you become a good father," Evelyn said. Grant nodded. "I hope so too. For their sake." "I understand." Evelyn walked away without looking back. The following spring, she took Lily and Rose to the Riverside Park where she and Grant had once taken their wedding photographs. For years, Evelyn had avoided the place because she believed memories belonged to the people who created them. But the river did not belong to Grant. The trees did not belong to the marriage. The sunlight on the water did not belong to the woman Evelyn used to be. She spread a blanket beneath a flowering tree and placed the twins beside her. Aunt Ruth sat nearby, opening containers of fruit. Linda arrived carrying 2 brightly wrapped birthday gifts, even though the twins' birthday had passed weeks earlier. "You bought them something else?" Evelyn asked. Linda looked offended. "They need educational toys. They are stuffed rabbits." "Emotionally educational," Evelyn laughed. It was a full, unguarded sound. Lily reached for a flower. Rose leaned against her sister. Evelyn looked at the people around her and understood that family had never been defined by who shared a name or controlled an inheritance. Family was the person who answered the phone during a storm, the person who sat beside a hospital bed without asking when you would be useful again, the person who told the truth when a lie would have been easier, the person who returned consistently, quietly, and without demanding applause. Grant had once accused Evelyn of destroying their family by becoming pregnant. Celeste had treated the twins as a threat before they had taken their first breaths. But Lily and Rose had not destroyed anything. They had revealed what was already broken, and in revealing it, they had given Evelyn the chance to stop living inside it. A year earlier, she had lain beneath hospital lights while a man told her she was unworthy of trust. Now she sat beneath an open sky, with both daughters in her arms. She had not been rescued by a wealthy stranger. She had not needed another man to give her life meaning. She had been helped by good people, defended by truth, and strengthened by the love she finally learned to give herself. Evelyn looked down as Lily wrapped one hand around her finger. Rose did the same. For years, Evelyn had believed strength meant enduring whatever life placed in front of her. Now she understood that strength also meant refusing to sign while frightened, refusing to accept blame for another person's choices, refusing to confuse apology with change, refusing to teach her daughters that love required them to abandon themselves. The twins looked up at her, trusting and unafraid. Evelyn smiled. "You will never have to beg anyone to believe you," she whispered. "Not while I'm here." The river continued moving beside them. The past remained real, but it no longer controlled the direction of her life. Grant would spend years proving what kind of father he intended to become. Celeste would face the consequences of treating people like pieces on a board. The company would survive. The scandal would eventually become yesterday's news. But Evelyn's greatest victory would never appear in a headline. It was waking each morning without fear. It was hearing her daughters laugh in the next room. It was knowing that the home around them had been built on truth, and perhaps that was the lesson hidden inside everything she had endured. The lie had nearly destroyed her marriage, but it was Grant's choices that destroyed her trust. Celeste's crime explained the beginning. It did not excuse the ending. Because people are not only responsible for what they are told, they are responsible for what they choose to do before they know the whole truth. Evelyn chose courage. She chose her daughters. And finally, after years of waiting for someone else to see her worth, she chose herself.